He placed his bare hands on the keyboard and became invisible in the digital world. He changed his identity, changed his face, but never stopped hacking. The man who remained invisible on the FBI's most wanted list for 2.5 years. Kevin Mitnick. But can a human really become a digital ghost? February 15th, 1995. FBI SWAT teams surrounded an apartment building in Raleigh, North Carolina. They had finally tracked down the world's most wanted computer criminal. But when they burst through the door, they found only humming computers and a simple note on the screen. "Thanks for the game. Let's play again soon." Kevin David Mitnick had done it again. He had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only digital breadcrumbs and the growing legend of a man who could become invisible at will. But this wasn't magic. This was something far more dangerous. This was the birth of the digital ghost. Every ghost story has an origin, and Kevin Mitnick's began in the San Fernando Valley in 1963. Born to a middle-class family, young Kevin discovered something most kids his age missed entirely: the hidden world of electronic signals surrounding us all. At age 12, while other kids played with toys, Kevin was reverse engineering the Los Angeles bus system. Not for free rides, though that was a bonus, but for the thrill of understanding how systems worked. He would call the bus company, pretending to be a student working on a school project. "Hi, this is Kevin from Hamilton High School. I'm doing a project on public transportation. Could you explain how your transfer system works?" Within weeks, he had mapped the entire bus network's vulnerabilities. He could ride anywhere in LA for free. But more importantly, he had discovered his superpower. People wanted to help. They wanted to share information. They wanted to trust. This wasn't just curiosity. This was the birth of social engineering. While his classmates struggled with basic math, Kevin was learning to hack the most complex system of all: human psychology. But it was when he encountered his first computer terminal that Kevin Mitnick truly found his calling. The year was 1979, and the digital revolution was just beginning. In the early 1980s, Kevin joined the ranks of phone phreakers, hackers who manipulated telephone systems. But where others saw free long-distance calls, Kevin saw something much bigger: the blueprint for digital invisibility. He didn't just want to make free calls. He wanted to understand every switch, every routing table, every vulnerability in the vast network that connected the world. Phone companies became his unwitting teachers. Kevin would call Pacific Bell's security department, perfectly impersonating technicians, managers, even federal agents. His voice would shift, his accent would change, his story was always perfectly crafted. "This is Agent Thompson from the FBI. We're investigating suspected fraud on your network. I need immediate access to your switching logs for the past 48 hours. And they would give it to him. Every single time. By 1983, Kevin had mapped significant portions of the Pacific Bell network. He knew more about their system than many of their own engineers. But knowledge wasn't enough. Kevin wanted control. He began creating false identities in the system. Kevin Mitnick could exist in a dozen places at once, with different social security numbers, different credit histories, different lives. He was learning to become a digital shapeshifter. In 1988, Kevin's luck ran out. Digital Equipment Corporation caught him stealing software, and he was sentenced to a year in prison. But even behind bars, Kevin was planning his greatest hack yet: himself. Kevin studied every detail of the legal system, the probation process, the electronic monitoring technology. When he was released to a halfway house in 1989, he was ready to become invisible. The first step was simple. Kevin Mitnick had to die. On November 1st, 1992, Kevin cut off his electronic monitoring bracelet and vanished. But this wasn't a simple escape. This was a complete digital transformation. Within 24 hours, Kevin Mitnick had become Brian Merrill. New social security number, new driver's license, new credit history. All created by hacking government databases and exploiting social engineering techniques he had perfected over a decade. But changing documents wasn't enough. Kevin physically transformed himself. He lost weight, grew a mustache, changed his posture, even altered his speech patterns. The overweight hacker from the Valley had become an athletic stranger. The FBI was hunting a ghost. For the next 2.5 years, Kevin Mitnick lived as the perfect digital phantom. He moved from city to city, identity to identity, always staying one step ahead of the FBI's most sophisticated manhunt. In Seattle, he was a software consultant named Brian Merrill. In Denver, he became Eric Weiss, a telecommunications expert. Each identity was carefully crafted, complete with employment history, references, and social connections. But Kevin wasn't just hiding. He was hacking at a level no one had ever achieved. From his invisible perch, he penetrated Motorola, Nokia, Sun Microsystems, and dozens of other technology companies. He stole source code, cellular phone cloning software, and security protocols. But, most importantly, he was studying how they studied him. Kevin had hacked into the FBI's own investigation. He could read their emails, monitor their phone calls, track their movements. The hunter had become the hunted. FBI agent Ken McGuire would later say, "It was like playing chess with a grandmaster who could see all your pieces, but you couldn't see any of his." The FBI task force dedicated to catching Kevin grew from 3 agents to over 50. They had psychological profiles, behavioral analysts, and cutting-edge computer forensics teams. But Kevin always seemed to know exactly what they were planning. Because he did. Kevin's greatest hacks during his invisible years weren't technical. They were psychological masterpieces that would become legendary in the hacker community. To access a Motorola facility, Kevin didn't break down doors or crack passwords. He called the security guard at 3 a.m., perfectly impersonating a frantic executive. "This is Bob from corporate. I know this is irregular, but I'm locked out of my office and I have a presentation for the CEO first thing tomorrow morning. The cleaning crew should be there soon. Could you let them know to keep my office open?" 20 minutes later, Kevin walked into one of the most secure telecommunications facilities in America, carrying a mop. He spent 6 hours downloading source code for Motorola's latest cellular technology, while vacuuming floors and emptying trash cans. Security cameras recorded him all night, but they saw only what they expected to see, a cleaner doing his job. But Kevin's most audacious hack was against Pacific Bell's central office. He convinced a secretary that he was a new engineer who had forgotten his access codes. "Hi Susan, this is Kevin from the downtown office. I'm supposed to be training here today, but I left my access card at home. Could you buzz me in? I'm standing right outside the secure area." There was no Susan. Kevin had called the main number, asked to be transferred to any secretary in the technical area, and simply guessed a common name. For 8 hours, Kevin had unrestricted access to Pacific Bell's entire Southern California network. He could have caused nationwide communications outages. Instead, he copied technical manuals and studied their latest security protocols. He was becoming the ultimate digital infiltrator. While Kevin lived as a digital ghost, a new player entered the game. Tsutomu Shimomura, a brilliant security researcher at the San Diego Supercomputer Center, had been tracking unusual network activity. On Christmas Day, 1994, Kevin made a crucial mistake. He hacked into Shimomura's personal computers, stealing files and leaving behind a taunting message. "Your security is no match for me." For Shimomura, this wasn't just a hack. It was a personal challenge. He had dedicated his life to computer security, and Kevin Mitnick had just proven him vulnerable. The chase that followed would become the stuff of legend. Shimomura developed sophisticated tracking techniques using cellular signal analysis and network forensics to narrow down Kevin's location. He travelled across the country with mobile tracking equipment, following digital breadcrumbs. Meanwhile, Kevin knew he was being hunted. He could see Shimomura's tracking attempts in the network logs. The invisible man was becoming visible. The psychological pressure was immense. For 2.5 years, Kevin had lived without his real identity, without close relationships, without the basic human connections that most people take for granted. He was the world's most sophisticated digital ghost, but he was also completely alone. February 1995. Kevin was living in Raleigh, North Carolina, under another false identity. He had new documentation, a new appearance, a new life. But Shimomura was closing in. Using advanced cellular triangulation techniques, Shimomura had narrowed Kevin's location to a few city blocks. The FBI was finally ready to end the longest computer crime manhunt in history. On February 15, 1995, the trap was set. FBI agents surrounded Kevin's apartment building while Shimomura monitored his digital signature from a van outside. At 1:30 a.m., they moved in. But the apartment was empty. Kevin's computers were still running. Files were still being transferred. But the ghost in the wires had vanished once again. Or had he? Investigators later learned that Kevin had detected the surveillance hours earlier. He was actually hiding 3 floors above his apartment, watching the FBI search for a ghost who was right above their heads. But this time, there was no escape route. Kevin Mitnick's invisibility had finally run out. At 3:47 a.m. on February 16, 1995, Kevin David Mitnick was arrested at a nearby Thrifty Payless store. The world's most famous hacker had been caught buying toothpaste. The man who had been invisible for 2.5 years was suddenly the most visible prisoner in America. The media portrayed Kevin as a digital terrorist capable of launching nuclear missiles with a whistle into a payphone. The reality was different, but far more interesting. Kevin Mitnick hadn't caused billions in damages or brought down critical infrastructure. Instead, he had exposed something far more dangerous: the illusion of security in the digital age. Kevin spent over 4 years in federal prison, including 8 months in solitary confinement. Prosecutors argued he was too dangerous to have phone access. They feared he could launch nuclear weapons by whistling into a payphone. But during his imprisonment, something remarkable happened. Kevin began to transform from digital ghost to security evangelist. Today, Kevin Mitnick is one of the world's most respected security consultants. The techniques he pioneered as a digital ghost, social engineering, identity manipulation, psychological infiltration, are now standard subjects in cybersecurity education. Companies pay millions for Kevin to test their security using the same techniques that once made him invisible. The FBI's most wanted hacker has become corporate America's most trusted security advisor. But Kevin's greatest legacy isn't his hacking skills. It's his demonstration that the most sophisticated security systems in the world are only as strong as the humans who operate them. People often ask me what my greatest hack was. It wasn't a computer system or a network. My greatest hack was becoming invisible in plain sight. I learned that in the digital age, the most powerful tool isn't code. It's trust. The ghost in the wires proved that with enough understanding of human psychology and technology, anyone could become invisible. But he also proved that true security isn't about building higher walls. It's about understanding the humans inside them. Kevin Mitnick spent years as a digital phantom, invisible to the world's most sophisticated hunters. But his greatest transformation was becoming visible again, as a teacher, a protector, and a guardian of the very systems he once haunted. The ghost found his way back to humanity, and in doing so, he made us all more secure. In the end, Kevin Mitnick's story isn't just about hacking computers, it's about some might, shorsi migi, sakaikin igi, sakaikin bang reality itself. And the most important lesson from the ghost in the wires is this. In a world where everything is connected, the most dangerous vulnerabilities aren't in our systems. They're in ourselves.